safe, and we're going to be bringing her back to her grandmother here very, very shortly.
With those reassuring words to an anxious grandmother, authorities in Richland County, Ohio announced that 4-year-old Haylee Donovan is alive and safe. Police say the child was taken by a convicted sex offender, 27-year-old Robbie Potter, and the girl's mother, 24-year-old Candace Watson, on May 31st. Just a few days earlier, Potter had escaped from a halfway house in Mansfield, Ohio. But the fugitive's flight ended when authorities caught up with them here in San Diego County at a Christian retreat in Valley Center.
We know this. We know they've been there about a week at the Christian retreat. So we know that. We know the time frame with Colorado, where they were there on June 2nd. So that's the information we have right now.
Straight out to the lines, Nicole in Kentucky. Hi, Nicole.
I just have a question, Nancy. I heard the attorney say that he did not think that the mother should be charged. I just wanted to know if there is a neglect charges that can be done, and if she had any prior involvement with social services prior to running with the sex offender, if she was under investigation for neglect for living with a sex offender.
Good idea. To Mary Watson, grandmother of little Haylee. Had child services ever investigated your daughter or anything to do with Haylee before?
As far as I know, they haven't, but I have had custody of Haylee before.
You have had custody of her before?
Yes, I have.
Why?
I took her for temporary custody while my daughter was going to school and working 2 jobs at the same time in Phoenix, Arizona. And I took her home with me and took care of her.
And why did you
I
have...
didn't want her to go from sitter to sitter.
Why did you have custody this time?
I got emergency custody so we could see if we could get an Amber Alert put out. And so we could bring Haylee home safe.
To Karen Stark, psychologist joining us out of New York. Karen, are these women so desperate for love, they'll even get in bed with a Tier 3 sex predator with their little girl?
Absolutely, Nancy. They're desperate for love, and they're willing to sacrifice their children. That's the most heinous part of this, is that they don't feel good about themselves. They don't know what to offer up to a man, and so they are willing to offer up a child.
Karen, put Dr. Stark back up. So your rationale is she doesn't feel good about herself. Do you think we care about her self-esteem, putting... I don't find it laughable, putting a baby at risk. If you will recall, Dr. Karen Stark, we saw that video footage from a local Target where they were returning a tent where they had camped out. The mommy went in alone, which means the daughter, the baby girl, was alone with a Tier 3 sex offender whose history includes attacking minors sexually. Now, does she just have blinders on? I mean, she knows about his record, even if she says otherwise. So explain the psyche to me, Karen Stark.
Well, I don't know, Nancy. You're right that it's the wrong thing to do, and that it doesn't matter how she feels about herself. But the truth of the matter is she's desperate. And so she puts it out of her mind. That's how this psyche works. It goes into her unconscious. She actually tells herself to repress it so that she could have this man be in her life. And I'm sure she told herself nothing was going to happen to her daughter because he seems so terrific to her.
So you mean she rationalizes it like, well, you know, I'm sure his first victim, it was her fault. It wasn't his fault.
That's it.
He's a changed man, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I get it. She talks herself into it. To Cheryl in Virginia. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Nancy. I love your show. You do such great work.
Bless you. Thank you.
My question is it a definite thing that the mother will lose custody to the grandmother? I mean, I'm hoping so, but is
Let's
that a
find
definite?
out. Attorney Renee Rockwell out of Atlanta. John Burris, famed defense attorney out of San Francisco. Renee, what about it?
Nancy, I cannot see that she would be able to retain custody. Now, I would not be so sure that Granny's going to get the baby. That baby is up for grabs. Somebody else may have access to that child. If Child Services does not think that Granny would abide by the rules for the mother to have only supervised visitation.
Number one, her name is not Granny. Her name is Mrs. Mary Watson. She is with us tonight, and right now she's got a court-ordered custody. Now, Renee Rockwell, when you say the baby's up for grabs, as you say in your vernacular, do you know of anyone else that would have a right to the baby other than the blood grandmother?
Of course, Nancy, the father, if he does not have a record, but that's a whole nother story, the father would have access to the child. But what I'm saying, Nancy, is that because of the attention in this case, Child Services is going to make sure that whoever has this child does not allow the mother access to the child.
Well, wait a minute. Remember this. Miss Watson, when your daughter took off on her trip with a sex predator and her little girl, she had custody. There was nothing you could do to stop her at that time. Is that right, Miss Watson?
That's right, Nancy, and I want to thank you for correcting her.
You darn right. This baby is not up for grabs. This grandmother has no history of any type of violation whatsoever that would keep her from her blood granddaughter. So suggesting she's going to be thrown into foster care or something like that is way, way out of the ballpark, even for you, Renee Rockwell.
Nancy, that is not my suggestion. All I'm saying is because of the attention in this case, Child Services is going to be very involved with whoever has custody of the child.
Well, I hope so. John Burris, what about it?
Well, I don't think that she's going to lose necessarily permanent custody of this child. She may lose her in the short run, but you just can't take someone's child.
Are you talking about mommy?
I'm talking about mommy. I think that in the short run, she's going to lose custody of the child because she has criminal issues she has to deal with.
Burris,
but in the long run, she is not.
I'm serious.
University of California at Berkeley. Bolt Hall.
I do not think at this moment they're going to claim you because this mommy is losing parental rights.
No.
I'm telling you, and I'm not a betting woman, but I would put everything I've got.
But not forever.
A short time. Hold on.
Not forever. She's not going to lose. They got to go through the hearing. You just can't take the child. There has to be hearings about this.
Of course there's going to be a hearing.
But
it's called a jury trial.
Not permanent. Not
Mike
permanent.
Brooks, former Fed with the FBI. What kind of charges is mommy looking at?
Oh, mommy's looking at aiding and abetting. She's looking at possible endangerment charges here, Nancy. She could get locked up. And keep in mind, Nancy, Mr. James Donathan, Haley's dad, he's also locked up because he's complicit in the escape of Robbie Potter, along with Kyle Watson, Candace's brother, who's a convicted sex offender, along with Daddy's girlfriend. So, you know, there are more players in here who may face additional charges once everybody's interviewed.
Back to Pete Elliott, the U.S. Marshal from the Northern District of Ohio. Pete, let me get this clear. This whole family, other than the grandmother, was hell-bent on helping a sex predator, a convicted sex predator, escape locked down in a halfway house. Why? What got over this mother to put her child at risk and join in with the rest of her family to get this guy out?
From my understanding, love. From what we learned last night, she said she was in love with him. She knew she was going to help him any way she could.
In love. In love.
In love.
When did she fall in love with a sex predator? How did that happen? He was in jail in the halfway house.
I would imagine when she helped him break out of the halfway house.
So she's kind of like a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. That's how they see themselves, except Bonnie and Clyde did take a 4-year-old little girl along with a sex predator. To Ernie Allen, the president of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, one of our most esteemed guests. Ernie, have you ever seen anything like it?
Well, unfortunately, Nancy, yes. We know that in a lot of these cases, these offenders target women in order to get access to their children. So I think what's important here is that Child Protective Services do its work, evaluate the situation, make sure this little girl is safe and ends up in the right place.
Ernie Allen, congratulations on 25 years of finding missing and exploited children.
The main thing I'm worried about is Haley and getting her back to where she has a stable life, where she can have her friends, her dancing and all that, and she don't have to go through none of this ever again.
I want to know why the grandmother refuses to mention that Candace was on drugs, on meth. She just scoots over it. She got temporary custody because her daughter at one point was on drugs.